Ana Navarro, known for her strong political opinions, presses Julia Roberts on her lack of public political statements. But unlike Joy Behar, Ana comes across as more calculating, pushing the conversation in a way that's framed as friendly but feels layered with judgment. Julia eventually calls out Ana's hypocrisy regarding media narratives, leading to a fiery on-air confrontation and a stunning ending.
Disclaimer: this is a fictional story featuring AI-generated characters.
What happens when one of Hollywood's most beloved actresses faces off against a political firebrand on national television? You'd expect civility, maybe even a little tension. But what unfolded on this fictional episode of The View left the audience stunned and left Ana Navarro looking like she just picked the wrong day to start a fight.
The camera pans slowly across the smiling faces of the View panel. Whoopi Goldberg, Sunny Hostin, Joy Behar, and Ana Navarro sat around the familiar curved table, the studio lights gleaming off polished wood and powdered skin. "Today, we're welcoming an icon," Whoopi announced, with her trademark mellow warmth. "An actress whose name is synonymous with elegance, talent, and heart. Julia Roberts." The audience erupted. Applause, cheers, even a few whistles rang out as Julia Roberts stepped into frame, tall, composed, radiant in a soft pastel suit and modest heels. She offered waves and smiles, walked gracefully to the table, and accepted a warm hug from Whoopi and a friendly greeting from Sunny. Even Joy gave her a nod and a half-smile. Ana Navarro, however, simply clapped politely, her smile tight and unreadable. Julia took her seat at the center of the table, positioned directly across from Ana. She crossed her legs, adjusted her lapel with that signature Roberts charm, and offered a gentle laugh as Whoopi teased, "Still the prettiest woman in the room." "Stop it," Julia said, her voice as honeyed as ever. "It's just the makeup." The first few minutes of the interview went exactly as expected. Julia spoke about her upcoming film, a character-driven drama exploring forgiveness and second chances. She described the shoot, the director, and even poked fun at herself for forgetting lines during emotional scenes. The audience ate it up. Every joke landed, every smile returned. And then Ana Navarro leaned in. Her tone was calm, professional, even pleasant, but there was a glint in her eyes, sharp as a polished blade. "Julia, you've always picked roles that speak to the human condition, strong women, big moral questions. But you, personally, you've been notably absent in public conversations about some of the most pressing issues today, especially when it comes to immigration, women's rights, and political division." Julia didn't flinch, but the temperature shifted slightly, like a breeze that carries a storm just beneath it. "Do you think that silence sends a message?" The words hung in the air, polished and polite, but unmistakably loaded. Sunny gave Ana a quick glance, her brows subtly raised. Joy raised her coffee mug, perhaps choosing to stay out of this one after her last on-air clash. Julia kept her voice level. "I think silence, when misunderstood, can say a lot. But I don't believe in speaking just to join a chorus. I believe in acting where it matters, not always talking where it's expected." The audience clapped lightly, not uproarious, but supportive. Ana didn't back off. "But don't you think public silence from people with platforms helps normalize injustice? I mean, you've got millions of followers. Some would say staying neutral is its own kind of message." Julia leaned slightly forward. "And some would say weaponizing public expectation against private values is its own kind of pressure." There it was, the spark. The two women stared at each other, neither raising their voice, neither visibly angry, but the air between them buzzed like a power line. Whoopi jumped in, trying to regain control. All right now, let's make sure we don't drift into murky waters too fast. We're here to celebrate Julia's beautiful work. But Ana wasn't done. Not yet. She smiled, that sharp, composed smile that had landed her countless cable news segments. I just think, in times like these, silence is a luxury, and not everyone has it. Julia blinked once and said nothing. Not yet, because while Ana had struck first, Julia Roberts was not the kind of woman who returned fire recklessly. She waited, measured, and when she struck, it wouldn't be to argue, it would be to end the conversation completely. The audience didn't know it yet, but a showdown had just begun.
Ana Navarro's words hung like smoke over the table. Thin, elegant, but suffocating if inhaled too deeply. Silence is a luxury, and not everyone has it. Julia Roberts didn't respond immediately. She didn't need to. The moment she glanced down, just for a second, and then looked back up, you could feel her recalibrating. Not retreating, just calculating the exact pressure point she would press if Ana went one step further. Sunny Hostin spoke up quickly, hoping to dilute the heat. To be fair, she said with a gentle firmness, not everyone expresses their values in the same way. Julia has supported causes for decades, even if she's not always doing interviews about them. Julia turned towards Sunny with soft appreciation. Thank you. I believe real support doesn't always need to be shouted from a rooftop. Sometimes it's about showing up for the people and projects that matter without needing a hashtag every time. Polite applause echoed around the studio. The audience, mostly middle-aged, deeply familiar with Julia's decades-long career, nodded in support. They didn't need her to be loud. They just wanted her to be Julia. But Ana wasn't moved. She folded her hands neatly on the table, leaned ever so slightly forward, and said, "But don't you think, in 2025, silence can be interpreted as consent, especially when celebrities have the ability to shape narratives? We live in a time where truth is under attack. How do you not speak out more when you know people listen?" Julia's gaze didn't waver. People listen when there's authenticity, and I'm not going to force outrage because it's fashionable. That's not who I am. Ana tilted her head. So you think those of us who speak out are performing outrage? Julia's voice remained velvet smooth, but now each word was laced with steel. No, I think there's a difference between being outraged and selling it. The audience gasped, audibly. Whoopi blinked. Joy sipped her drink and for once kept her mouth shut. Ana raised an eyebrow, clearly stunned. Are you suggesting I or others at this table are using outrage as a brand? I'm saying that in a world full of noise, people have confused volume with virtue. I don't want to add to the chaos. I want to add to what matters, quietly if I have to. Ana's lips parted, then closed again. She looked at Sunny, then back to Julia. The camera zoomed slightly for a two-shot, the kind producers knew would become the thumbnail for 100 reaction videos later that day. But Julia, Ana pressed on. The platforms we're given, they're not just for art, they're for leadership, for moral clarity. When people in power stay silent, Julia raised her hand, politely but powerfully, cutting Ana off without raising her voice. Power, she said, isn't speaking. Sometimes it's not needing to. And I refuse to believe that being an actor means I owe the public my outrage on demand. I give my voice to my characters. I give my money to causes. I give my time to communities. I don't need to give my soul to Twitter to prove I care. The audience burst into applause, but Ana, ever composed, wasn't quite finished. But don't you worry that staying neutral gives cover to the wrong side? Julia took a breath, then responded slowly. Let me be very clear. I am not neutral. I am private. There's a difference. And frankly, Ana, it's frustrating that as women, we keep demanding more performative pain from each other just to be seen as allies. That landed like a punch wrapped in silk.
The audience, now fully pulled into the undercurrent, let out a murmur. People weren't just watching a celebrity interview anymore. They were witnessing a philosophical collision between two women who both believed they were right. Sunny leaned back in her seat, visibly impressed with Julia's clarity. Whoopi signaled for a commercial, but producers, sensing the viral gold unfolding live, waved her off. Let it roll. And Julia? She turned calmly back to Ana and said, "I admire your passion, but don't mistake my peace for absence. I show up where it counts, even if it's not on your timeline."
By now, the room felt like a courtroom, but without a judge to bang the gavel. Ana Navarro had come prepared for a debate. What she hadn't expected was Julia Roberts, unshaken, deliberate, and now deadly precise. Still, Ana wasn't backing down. She leaned forward, voice still low and diplomatic, but with steel in its spine. "I respect that you care privately, Julia, but we live in a moment where people look up to you, not just to entertain, but to inspire. And when the world's on fire, silence from powerful people can feel like complicity." Julia turned toward her fully, her body language shifting now. She wasn't coiled, she wasn't reactive, she was centered, like someone who'd been pushed for too long and had finally decided to plant her feet. "You keep calling it silence," she began, voice calm but piercing. "But what you really mean is absence from your platforms, not from the world. I never said I do nothing. I said I don't perform it for approval." Ana opened her mouth, but Julia continued, her tone growing steadier, deeper, firmer with each word. "The truth is, Ana, not everyone wants to live in a glass box where their grief and anger are constantly on display just to be counted as authentic. I didn't get into this business to prove my politics. I got into it because I believe stories can change people. Quietly, gently, deeply. And that still matters." The studio was silent. No audience coughs or shifting chairs, just Julia Roberts commanding the room without ever raising her voice. Ana blinked, surprised, but still poised. "So, you don't think public figures have any duty to speak out?" Julia leaned in slightly, her expression clear and unflinching. "I think public figures have a duty to act with integrity, whether the camera's rolling or not. I visit shelters, fund education programs, support victims groups. You just don't see it because I'm not tagging it on Instagram. And maybe that says more about how we've confused activism with marketing." The audience erupted. Real, unforced applause. Some even rose from their seats. You could see heads turning in the crowd, people whispering, "Did she just say that?" Ana remained still, her face composed but taut. She wasn't used to losing control of a segment, certainly not to someone who wasn't even trying to win. "Julia, I respect what you do. I just think—" Julia interrupted softly. "No, with respect, Ana, you don't." That landed. You respect what fits the narrative. What you don't respect is the person who quietly refuses to play your game. And that's okay. But let's stop pretending this is about the world. This was about me not saying what you wanted to hear. Ana froze, not wounded but cornered. And Julia, never one to gloat, simply folded her hands on the table and finished with a line so clear it carved through the entire set. "I'm not here to be your kind of loud. I'm here to be my kind of true." There it was. The audience roared, not a polite clap, but something deeper, more instinctive. Julia Roberts hadn't given them a viral moment. She had given them a lesson in restraint, in values, and choosing depth over noise. Whoopi, for once, looked speechless.
Joy Behar mouthed "wow" under her breath. Sunny Hostin, visibly moved, just nodded in Julia's direction with quiet awe. And Ana Navarro? She smiled, tight, tired, and slightly defeated. Well, you certainly know how to use your voice when it counts. Julia simply smiled back. Exactly. And with that, the segment ended. But the storm was only just beginning.
The segment ended, but the storm was just beginning. As the credits rolled on The View's broadcast, social media ignited. Viewers didn't even wait for the official upload. They had already clipped the moment Julia Roberts uttered the now iconic line, "I'm not here to be your kind of loud. I'm here to be my kind of true." Within hours, it was trending on every platform. Hashtag my kind of true, hashtag Julia Roberts claps back, hashtag Anna versus Julia, hashtag The View unfiltered. Clips of the confrontation flooded TikTok and YouTube. Reaction videos popped up by the hundreds. Body language analysts, political commentators, and even therapists dissecting every glance, pause, and subtle smile. Julia's calm demeanor became a symbol of quiet strength, while Ana Navarro's insistence was now being labeled by many as performative pressure. One viral tweet put it perfectly. Julia Roberts didn't walk off. She didn't yell. She didn't even raise an eyebrow. She simply made a point and left Anna with nothing but silence. That's what real power looks like. Meanwhile, The View's official Instagram account posted a smiling group photo from earlier in the day, but the comments were flooded. "Where's Julia's smile now? She put Anna in her place without breaking a sweat. She didn't walk off. She stood taller than the table. Give Julia a TED Talk, not a promo slot." Ana Navarro, no stranger to controversy, posted a clipped response on X, formerly Twitter. "It's okay to disagree. We had a passionate conversation. I respect Julia and wish her well." But it didn't land. The replies were harsh, especially from longtime viewers. Respect doesn't sound like subtle shaming. You came in her sideways and got handled. Julia Roberts was more composed in 5 minutes than most political figures are in 5 years. Anna went quiet after that. But Julia didn't post a statement, didn't do a post-interview, didn't release a PR-filtered follow-up. Instead, 3 days later, she posted a black and white image of a closed script on a wooden table, her initials JR embossed on the leather cover. The caption simply read, "Silence isn't absence, it's presence on your own terms." It hit like poetry. Hollywood stars from across the spectrum flooded the comments. Meryl Streep, "Grace under fire, as always." Reese Witherspoon, "Powerful, poised, iconic." Kerry Washington, "Truth doesn't need volume to echo." Even Oprah Winfrey shared the post on her story, writing, "This is how you hold your ground without throwing punches." Back at The View, the network faced an awkward week. Ratings went up, but the comments and criticism did too. Think pieces poured out. Why are we still policing women's voices? Julia Roberts and the art of the elegant shutdown. The pressure to perform politics, a celebrity dilemma. Sunny Hostin, during a quieter Friday episode, addressed it softly. "I think what we saw this week was a reminder that not all strength is loud. And we, as interviewers, should always ask ourselves, are we looking for answers or demanding performance?" Even Joy Behar, who had stayed silent during the initial moment, made a wry comment days later. "I've interviewed world leaders who broke faster than Julia Roberts." That, surprisingly, got a laugh from the audience. But Ana Navarro? She remained composed on air, but colder, sharper, like someone who just lost an invisible debate and wasn't sure how to move forward without appearing defensive. Behind the scenes, sources whispered of friction on the set, a growing divide between Anna and some of her co-hosts. She hadn't apologized, but she hadn't recovered either. Because the truth was, Julia Roberts hadn't needed to win the debate. She just told her truth, and it echoed louder than Anna's questions ever could. By the end of the week, the Julia Roberts-Ana Navarro clash had transcended the talk show format.
It wasn't just a segment anymore. It had become a cultural flashpoint, a collision between two views of public responsibility, two definitions of what it means to use your voice. TikTok edits layered Julia's calm takedown over orchestral music. Young women stitched her now famous line, "I'm not here to be your kind of loud, I'm here to be my kind of true," onto daily affirmations. Reaction channels released hour-long breakdowns titled, "Why Julia Roberts Just Gave the Most Powerful Response of 2025, Ana Navarro's Misstep When Pressure Becomes Projection, Silence, Power, and the New Language of Feminism." Twitter, or X as it was now rebranded, had threads dissecting every body cue. Media outlets went into overdrive. A viral Medium article titled, "Julia's Grace, Anna's Fire, and the Women Caught in Between" received over 3 million reads in 3 days. Even late-night hosts took sides. Jimmy Fallon joked, "Julia Roberts didn't walk out, she walked through Anna like a gentle hurricane." Stephen Colbert called it a masterclass in being eloquent without being arrogant. Meanwhile, on Reddit, one user summed it up best. Julia didn't just win the conversation, she redefined it. And perhaps most remarkably, a quiet shift began to occur in celebrity discourse. Writers and fans started using Julieing as a verb. To Julia, verb. To respond with calm clarity and devastating honesty without ever losing your composure. Violence last word. 10 days after the interview aired, Julia Roberts finally spoke, not on a podcast, not in a press junket, but during a quiet panel at the Telluride Film Festival. A moderator asked, carefully, "Has your idea of being public with your beliefs changed after your recent visit to The View?" Julia smiled, not forced, not performative, just Julia. "Not really," she said. "The world's louder now, but that doesn't mean you have to shout to be heard. I believe in showing up for people, for causes, and for stories that matter. Not every message needs a bullhorn." Then she added, softly, "Some things echo longer when they're whispered." The room went silent. Then applause. Not the wild clapping of hype, but the kind that comes from genuine respect.